Hello everyone, welcome back to another edition of Indie Book Review, where today I am reviewing Grave Alice by Danielle Q. Lee. Now, I have a little bit of a history with Danielle. I knew her personally, because her and I were a part of the same writing group for a little while, here in our respective city. I haven't seen Danielle in years, because I stopped going to that writing group, because I moved to a different city for a little while, and then when I came back, I just never went back. For whatever reason, probably busy, and then just never went back due to habit of, yeah. So with that said, I've been wanting to check this book out for quite some time, because she was reading it back when I was still going to that writing group. So anyway, I read it. Now what did I think about it? Let's get into it. So, Grave Alice is about a woman who's in a train accident and ends up as a quadriplegic. She has no feeling below the neck, and she's unable to talk. She can't really move her head. She can't move her head at all. She can just see. She can just experience what's going on around her. She's unable to interact in pretty much any shape, way, or form. She can kind of frown a little bit and, wrinkle her nose and her eyebrows and stuff like that, but that's really the extent as far as it goes. For the first little while, the doctors aren't even really sure if she's even really in there, if she's not just a brain-dead body. And throughout the book, you get to see Alice's journey as she slowly starts to learn how to speak, and just the horror of the knowledge of not being able to ever do anything again. You get to feel and experience her wants and desires to move, to be loved, to have a relationship with the doctor that's taking care of her. There's so much emotion behind this character. And the horror behind everything, too. Ugh. Let's get into the pacing. The pacing is done very, very well. This is a slow burn sort of book. It's not something that you're going to get a whole bunch of action and a whole bunch of stuff going on because, for one, your main character is bedridden. She is incapable of movement. So what you have is a very introspective character who's almost incapable of letting anything out. It's not until at least halfway through the book where she actually starts to somewhat talk on a mildly consistent basis. And even then, it's hardly at all. A lot of it is her in her own head. As she goes from Dr. Kellogg's sanatorium place for the disabled to Dr. Devlin's house, where he can take care of her. And you watch her realization as she realizes her parents have died. You watch her realization as everything is going on, which makes the pacing and the horror and the psychological aspects of it just hit that much harder. I've often stated that I am not a fan of the horror genre because, frankly, I don't think that much has been done in the way of anything new or interesting. And I'm not going to pretend like this book breaks any sort of new ground in terms of horror, in terms of the horror genre or anything like that. But because the character is as introspective as she is, and because the situation is not only something completely horrific, but so completely plausible that you really start to feel what she's going through. It's not just empathy. It becomes actual terror. Because what she's going through can happen to anyone. People become quadriplegic fairly often. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to give percentages or anything like that because I don't know, and this is a book review page. I'm not going to go through statistics. But anyway, because becoming paralyzed is such a real thing, even in our era, it's something that that a person can relate to in terms of real horror. And I just appreciated it for what it was, is basically what this comes down to. I appreciate good horror when it comes to something being more real and having a bit more of a personal edge to it. Now, there are some aspects of this book that are outside the realm of reality. There's certain aspects that just don't fit in it, and it comes into a bit more of a paranormal style. But that's not until a little later, and even then, everything that goes on is a little more uh, under the radar for the majority of the book. It's not until like the very, very end when things come to a bit more of a fever pitch that what you're suspecting becomes reality. And it's wonderfully well done. Like, it is absolutely fantastically well paced. It's fantastically well written, especially that ending. If there's one critique I will give, like, I know I've been praising the pacing this whole time, but there are some points where it kind of drags a little bit. There's these little bits and pieces throughout the book where Alice is kind of narrating her own little story to herself around this woman named Constance who gets abducted by pirates, and I just don't think it added much in terms of the story. But that's just kind of my opinion on it. It doesn't make or break the book. It doesn't harm the pacing by any means. They're just kind of there. And I'm sure that's intended to have a sort of parallel as to what's going on with Alice, as to what's going on with Constance. Despite the two having not much to do with one another, you can find correlating feelings and stuff like that that go along with it in certain situations that match in certain ways. Yeah, sure, okay. I just don't think they really needed to be there. Far from that, though, this book is really, really well paced, and it's it's a book that I greatly enjoyed, and it's one that I actually wish that I'd read a little sooner because she sent it to me a long time ago as an email, and I just never read it. I think I just didn't have time. I don't remember. It was back in 2015. Might have been very early 2016. So it was a while back. I don't remember what all happened or why I didn't read it, but I'm wishing I did then. Because it's a good read. It's one that I would actually recommend other people pick up, especially someone who's into slow burn horror. Because this one does it very, very well. Ultimately, I'm going to give Grave Alice a 9.5 out of 10. Like, it does a very good job of being what it needs to be. The pacing is very well done, and the character of Alice is very believable. She's very real. And the mystery that goes on around her, it's very intriguing. So, 9.5 out of 10 for Grave Alice. So, that's all I got for you, folks. Be sure to like, comment, all that stuff. And yeah, have a good one.